Hello and welcome to another episode of Exploring Standards. As always, I'm your host, Jess. And today on the show, we're talking about how to build a security culture using ISO 27001. And we are talking to Tobias from TUV Nord. Tobias, how are you today?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm feeling very well. Thanks a lot for having me in your podcast today, and I really appreciate the invitation, and I also hope you are doing well.
I'm very well. Thank you very much for asking. Thank you very much for joining me on the show. We really do appreciate it. Before we get into our topic, as always, I do like to give my guests a chance to introduce themselves. So, Tobias, introduce ourselves.
So, thank you very much. My name is Tobias Miekle, and I work for the TUV. So in German, it's called TÜV Nord. We are the TÜV Nord Group, and I'm here on behalf of our colleagues at TÜV UK. There's our local legal entity, and we are a certification body in the TIC sector, and TIC sector means testing, inspection, and certification. And for various standards like ISO 27001, Information Security Management System, which which is the topic today, and but also ISO 42001 for AI management systems, as well as other management system standards like quality management system ISO 9001 or ISO 14001. And in my role, I work as a global product manager in the business unit certification in Germany. And I'm responsible for a number of management system standards, including ISMS, but also PIMS for ISO 27701, and also for business continuity management systems with the ISO 20301. And the global product management means that I'm responsible, for example, for the technical development, ongoing support on these standards for all the local legal entities around the world in our group. And in addition to this role as a global product manager, I'm working as an ISO auditor. I'm for information security as a lead auditor and other related standards, especially for also for German standards in the critical infrastructure. And so in my role, I'm directly involved in the certification of management systems. And now I'm proud and really happy to talk about this specific topic in information security because security culture is in practice. It's a very important topic.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think sometimes people come to you talking about ISO and information security in 27001, and they think it's like a tick box sort of thing, and they don't want to embed it into their culture, and it's something that's really important. Um, so before we get into the culture piece, can we talk about what ISO 27001 is? So for those who are new to the topic, why is it important for organizations today?
If we start with the basics about the topic ISO 27001, it's the leading international standard for managing information security in a structured and way in the organizations. Um, Directly, it doesn't tell you, you have to install a firewall, buy a tool. So it gives you a management structure with a system which contents the policies, processes, roles, objectives, and very important, the continuous improvement. And all this is focused on protecting the information and also the important assets of the organization. And very briefly in terms or structure, the standard has a main part with the requirements for setting up and running an information management system. Things like the context of the organization, leadership, planning, operations, and performance evaluation, and also has an annex with a catalog of security controls.
Mhm.
So uh, when you visualize it, then you have two building blocks, the clauses on how to manage the information security as a management system in a harmonized structure. So similar to the other management system standards, and an Annex A with 93 referent controls covering technical, organizational, and human measures. From which each organization selects what is appropriate. So um, customer data, intellectual property, financial information are all processed in the company. So every organization is digital by default, and so all of these are processed and stored in IT systems, and so it is a risk. And we speak about risk, and is exposed to possible cyber threats. And the result is that ISO 27001, when you have a management system in place that helps organizations identify their key information risks and put the right mix with the controls and the measures of technical, organizational, and human controls in place in your organization. And also, yeah, that's that's very important from for our company. And this is the practical sides. And when if you have a certification for ISO 27001 as an example, is a recognized way to show the customers, show your partners, and also regulators that you, yeah, take information security seriously, and that you can prove it with an independent audit, like with TÜV Nord UK.
Fantastic, thank you. I love that little summary and the importance as well. Absolutely, that's wonderful. So let's go into security culture. How would you define security culture, and then how is it different from simply having policies and procedures in place?
Yeah, that's from my point of view, is security culture one of the important topic to live the security in the organization. And when I talk about security culture, I mean how people actually think and behave about security when no one is watching, for example.
Mhm,
And it's the shared attitudes, habits, and unwritten rules that guide decisions in everyday situations, also in our private life. And when the deadline is tight, when the customer is waiting, when something goes wrong, and that means that's, yeah, very different from just having policies in place and procedures stored on the intranet. And you can have wonderful, beautifully written documents in your organizations. You can publish it, and that meet every formal requirements. But if people see them as a bureaucracy, they will bypass them as soon, because it's a written form, and we don't live it. We don't
mhm,
live these policies. And a strong security culture means people really get why security measures. They see it as a part of their job. That's it's a part. I have the security in my mind, and they naturally go for the secure option, not because they're scared of getting into trouble, for example, but because it's my way of work. It's their way of work, of in the context of security. And as an example, that's it's a good topic. Or if someone of the employees receives a slightly suspicious email from a customer, uh, they don't just click the link. Oh, okay, this is an urgent mail. Please click on the link and upload the following things, for example. So the things done faster. And if you have a good security culture in place, their first instinct is to pause, think about it, double check the sender, maybe call the customer by mobile, or an other channel maybe, or directly, if you have a process in place, forwarded it to IT, that they have to check it um, if this is a phishing mail or anything else. And simply because that's what a normal looks like in an organization. That is the way to get a good security culture in the company.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think you've made a really good point when you said there's the habits and you're living it. It's not even something that you are necessarily considering because it's embedded in how you work and how your company is. Fantastic. So then going to the standard, which parts of ISO 27001 most directly support building a strong security culture? So things particularly around leadership and engagement.
Yes. Yeah, as I mentioned, we have some controls and measures in place in the ISO 27001 in the ISMS, and it contains several elements that directly support the security culture. And the important point, especially around the leadership and engagement, because the leadership is when you do it, have the leadership in place, and you do not live from the top management, the ISMS, it don't make sense. So leadership is expected to the top management, and is expected to set directly the clear direction. They have to provide the resources for the ISMS, and to visibly, and that's very important, to visibly support the information security in the company, within the organization. And that moves also in the heads the security from the IT as an IT topic to a genuine business priority.
Mm,
And so that is, you need the agreement and the leadership and support by the top management. They have to live it. So
mhm,
that's one of the important point. And also, second, in the ISMS, we have requirements according competence, the right competences, the awareness, and also communication. So the standard doesn't stop at write a policy and publish it in the internet. It explicitly says that the people must be competent for their roles and aware of security policies, and to live the policies of the relevant risk, and also of their individual responsibilities. And third, many of the Annex A controls, of the 93 Annex A controls, are cultural in nature. They deal with assigning information security responsibilities, setting up and building awareness, and also managing the suppliers, and dealing with, in context of human resources, disciplinary issues. And all of these things strongly influence how to people behave day to day, and how seriously to take the security, and how to live these policies.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And you were saying about the leadership, it has to be top down, doesn't it? If the leadership aren't doing it, it's not going to filter through down. Absolutely. And then also your point about taking information security away from IT, because you're right, it just kind of just fall in the lap, doesn't it? And everyone's like, oh, it's an IT thing. Well, no, it's not. Information security is company
Yeah,
wide. So that was some really good points here. Yeah, thank you.
it
Um,
starts with the top management. Yes.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So ISO 27001 is risk-based. How does the risk assessment process help employees understand their role in protecting information?
Yeah, an information security management system has got a risk approach, and if we have a risk approach, we need a risk assessment. So the risk assessment is really where, security becomes real for people, and how to handle information security. And instead of talking about abstract cyber risk, you can discuss with your colleagues, or with your team members, about concrete scenarios. Maybe as an example, what happens if this key system is unavailable? Or what if sensitive data is sent to a wrong recipient, or the maybe sensitive data will be published?
Hmm.
And and if you then involve in a project people from different areas, for example, HR, operations, also IT, they suddenly see themselves and their processes in these scenarios. So
Okay.
they realize that the way they handle access documents, emails, supplier data, either introduce risk or reduce the risk. So security is no longer something which I explained in the last question. Security is no longer something IT tell us to do. It becomes something we agreed is important for our customers and our business, and each person can see their own role in managing that risk. So this also um, shift it in a perspective in extremely powerful for building a strong security culture in the organization.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So, you talked about these earlier, the Annex A controls. So, which controls typically require the biggest cultural shift to implement effectively?
Yeah, the controls that usually require the biggest cultural change, are the ones that touch everyday behavior and power structures.
Okay.
And a very classic example is the access control, because moving towards genuine least privilege, removing broad just in case access, and revoking access quickly when someone changes roles or leaves a team or leaves a group, that can feel unconformable. And people are used to having wide access. I
Mhm.
need this access, and as an example, managers may feel they lose flexibility and control. And then they need, okay, I need every time access to all the data, to all the files, to all the structure, and this is a classic example of a biggest cultural shift. And user awareness and also acceptable use for the employees is another big area. If you are asking people to change deeply ingrained habits, how they share information, how they use personal devices when you have bring your own device in your company, how they work in public spaces, or how they react to suspicious emails in my example of the first question. And then that can feel like a big shift compared to a more relaxed way of working. And
Mhm.
finally, also an important topic is the area of incident reporting. And if you have a healthy security culture in place or in the company, that needs people to report the problems and mistakes early, so the organization can directly respond quickly and improve. So in many organizations, this means moving away from a blame culture towards an open learning culture, making mistakes maybe, and that is a significant cultural change.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more because, we are human. We do make mistakes. That just happens.
That's the
And
point.
if you're worried about being blamed or something going because you've made a mistake, you're not going to record it, but then you're not learning lessons either. So that is a big one, massively. So how can organizations embed key controls like access management or acceptable use into daily habits rather than treating them as a compliance exercise?
Yeah, the key is every day the key. The key is to integrate controls into the way work already happens instead of bolting them on the extra steps. For
Okay.
example, and makes it easier. For example, when we speak about access management, a good approach is to connect the access rights and setting up the access rights process into the HR department, for example. So when someone joins, changes the role, or leaves the company, the access is granted, changed, or removed automatically, maybe with a tool or with a process, and according to directly defined roles by HR and the department. So that makes the secure way and also the easy way instead of relying on ad hoc requests that might be forgotten, for example.
Mhm. Yeah.
And this is what we sometimes see when I'm in an audit. And yeah, another example is for acceptable use and awareness. Yeah, long annual trainings are usually not enough, but short, relevant, scenario-based trainings, micro-learning, and reminders in the tools people use every day are much more effective. So they have a little guidance maybe also. And if security settings and defaults in systems are configured directly in a secure way, for example, using secure collaboration defaults or classification labels for transferring or changing of data, people are gently guided directly to do the right thing. So they help, takes them by the hand and helps them to do the right things. And and I repeat it, one more important point is leaders need to model the behavior they expect. If the senior managers ignore, for example, password policies, use shadow IT or bypass directly the procedures, everybody sees it.
Mhm.
And yeah, if they demonstrate good security habits themselves, that sends a strong signal yeah, throughout the organization and to the employers.
I'm sensing a common theme here, but leadership is key.
Yeah, leadership is the priority of all management system.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So what are the real world effects of a strong security culture? So not just internally for obviously reducing risks, but externally as well. So in terms of customer trust, reputation, and commercial advantage.
Yeah, internally, yeah, the effects, the direct effects of a strong security culture are quite visible. You tend to see fewer preventable incidents, and when something does happen, it's usually directed, detected, and reported earlier
Mhm.
from the colleagues or the employees. And so it also reduces confusion and frustration. Um, Staff know what is expected of them. They understand the reasons behind the rules and the procedures, and they feel they can raise concerns without fear. And also a benefit is that they use it in their private life. Okay.
Mhm.
Then when I have security culture in my mind, I also can use it not only in my organization, I can use it in my private life. And externally, yeah, a strong security culture is major trust factor for the organizations. Customers and partners experience it in many small details in how you handle contracts, in how you share the data in a secure way, or in how you communicate about vulnerabilities or incidents. And maybe if you have a big incident or anything, it's how you handle this. And ISO 2701 certification already sends a a strong trust signal, but when it's in backend by real culture, it becomes a genuine commercial advantage, especially in sectors where data protection and availability of data are key buying criteria and also important for tenders and anything else.
Mm, okay. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. So obviously we are talking about ISO 27001, and a lot of people come in and want to pass their audit, but we're talking about the security culture. So how can organizations actually measure whether their security culture is improving or they're just like passing the audit?
Yeah, passing an audit is important, but
Obviously.
but it doesn't automatically mean that the culture is healthy. And
Yes.
to really understand whether security culture improving, organizations should look at a mix of behavior-based indicators and perceptions. On the behavior side, useful metrics include when we have some KPIs in place, how many incidents and near misses are reported, how quickly they are reported, how do people perform in phishing simulations in an email over time, or how fast is access removed when someone leaves. That's very important. That's a good. It's also a point when we doing the audit. Um, on the perception side, regular short staff surveys or targeted interviews can help to improve it. You can, yeah, the organizations can ask questions like, do people feel comfortable reporting issues and mistakes? Do they believe leadership really supports the security? Maybe it's a dangerous question, but it's an opportunity. And do they understand what is expected of them in their role? And if both the hard numbers of the metrics and the feedback from people are moving in the right direction, there's a good chance that your security or the security culture in the organization is genuinely improving, not only in the documentation. So then we have it in my mind, and we use security culture in our heads. We have it directly there.
Those are fantastic tips. Thank you so much. So bit of advice now for our listeners. If an organization wanted to improve its security culture tomorrow using ISO 27001, what is the single most important first step?
The first step, or I start with the end. At the end, you need a certification. No, no. So we start if an organization, want to take a concrete step to tomorrow to improve its security culture using ISO 27001. I would start with my lovely topic. It would start with a very visible leadership action. So bring the top management team together and focused, honest risk discussion, which information assets really matter most of our or to our business and to our customers. What would be the impact if they were compromised or unavailable? And from that, define a small number of clear business orientated security objectives of the Annex A, maybe, and then communicate personally by the leadership, not just in an email, but in meetings, conversations, and anything else. And so you have two results. At first, it shows everyone that security is a real business priority with a clear direction from the top management. And the second, it creates a shared understanding. Everybody knows the way where we want to go, and that makes it much easier to implement more detailed ISO 27001 elements, policies, controls, training, continuous improvement in a way that people actually accept and live, so that we have a structured way directly. And if you get that first step right, ISO 27001 stops being a compliance label and becomes a very practical roadmap in the organization for building the security culture you really need.
That is fantastic. Once again, the common theme is leadership, and that's where
Yeah,
you start. That is the most important bit. Amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Tobias. It has been a fantastic episode, and I think our listeners are going to find it really helpful and interesting to learn about how a security culture can be built, from ISO 27001. And essentially, at leadership, we are looking at you. So thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
thank you very much.
If you have enjoyed listening to the show, please make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help our podcast. I will pop Tobias's contact details in the show notes. So if you have any questions or you would like to reach out to TV Nord, you can do that via there. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks on another episode.